Hello, and welcome to Afternoon Tea with Karen and the Electronic Intifada.
We are going to dig into those here. If we look at number one, um, we're seeing here this is Yasin strike against a Namur troop carrier. We're going to see a lot of Namur troop carriers this week. I think that's part of the convoy that's shuttling troops into the Philadelphia corridor to carry out that work. So we see more Namers than usual, and not seeing them in tank convoys in the way they were before. Not sure what we're seeing there, but I believe it's shuttling troops down to the Philadelphia corridor. And you can see this is from inside a house. And when you're firing from inside a house around these walls like this, the trophy active protection system that the Israeli military armored vehicles uses just doesn't have any chance on this. And you can see that that's a direct hit in that one. And you can hear a secondary explosion in the original video that we have removed the audio from. You can find the original videos on my Twitter feed. Maybe tomorrow I can throw that up in the ticker at some point during this, but that's where you'll find it. But this particular tactic, showing them inside, still operating inside homes. We'll remember that the commander of the 162nd Division that is in charge of the battle in Rafah told us on the 12th of September that the fighters had been dismantled and destroyed. And so we're going to see for this next half hour or so that is just not true. And I can't count the number of times we've done this before. If the Israeli military were to reinvade Shujaiya tomorrow, speaking of Rifat, Shujaiya would be there to meet them in an organized military formation that the Israeli military keeps saying that they defeat and dismantle, but they don't. They use that term dismantle because that's what happened to their forces on October 7th. They were dismantled. Their command and control was destroyed by the Qassam brigades, and that made them unable, the Israeli military, unable to fight all day on October 7th because that had been dismantled. So this video also has tank fire in the background as well. So you could see that it's the Namur mounted machine gun is firing. So these aren't just pot shots. This is in the middle of a battle now, 150 plus days into the invasion of Rafah. So the fighters are still carrying on apace. They don't seem to be in any way visibly degraded according to anything that we're seeing on camera. We can do number two here tomorrow. This is a Qassam operation in the center of Rafah versus a D9 armored bulldozer. And this says targeting a D9 military bulldozer at dawn. 24 hours later, it was taken over and the flag of the Al-Qassam brigades was raised on it and it was set on fire. So what we're seeing here is in the dark. This shot is before daylight, so we don't see a lot of the detail, but you can see there the Yasin shot, and the fighter notes that the bulldozer is burning. And he jokes that it's gonna need another bulldozer to tow it. Well, then they wake up in the morning or go through the entire day, wake up the next morning, and the D9 bulldozer is still there. And they haven't dragged it out. So this fighter says, the enemy has been unable to remove this vehicle from its place of the ambush, our ambush of death. We say to you that you will drown in the sands of Rafah. That's the common line from the fighters in Rafah, that they will drown you in the sands of Rafah. And this fighter says this is dedicated, meaning a gift, like a dedication to our brothers in Yemen and to the axis of resistance. So again, we see the multi-front solidarity from these fighters. They interact with their historical leadership. They interact with the other fronts. We remember when the West Bank operation dialed up, immediately videos out of Gaza were saluting the West Bank resistance by name, by location. And so this multi-front battle has been a critical part of this war. And as we see with the war escalating in Lebanon, which we'll talk about later, the multiple fronts of this war are a crucial part of the story of this war. This war was completely begun by Palestinians, Hezbollah, Iran, the Ansar Allah in Yemen. They did not know about this operation. They found out the operation the same day as we. This was an indigenous operation grown in Gaza, commanded from Gaza, using Gaza fighters, and as we've seen over the last 11 months, using Gaza weapons, Gaza-made weapons. We've seen imported weapons, but those are the exception to what we see. And the reason why these fighters are still able to go 11 months into this battle is because they made their own stocks and are presumably continuing to make their stocks. So the idea that you're dismantling the Qassam brigades is just not happening. If we go to number 3 there, Tamara. They're not dismantling the Qassam brigades because the Qassam brigades have more recruits than they have fighters killed. They're going to have more recruits than they can handle. These are 2 fighters wiring up a Shawad Qassam built explosively formed penetrator device. And as they're walking over to place it by the road, the one fighter says, the tree, put it on the tree. And this is the first time we've seen them use a tree. We've seen them use an elevated Shawad before. We saw it used out of a window, but it's actually a tactically smart move. It puts the weapon up and aimed down. You see how he's pointed it down. So he's not just throwing it up in that tree. Now we see the Namr here with the tank commander's head popping out. And he's going to get a head-high Shawat device aimed down, pointed down on the tank, on the armored personnel carrier. So it's an ingenious little move here. If we watch it one more time, I can show you the details because he's placing it. So they're wiring it up here in the house. You can see the device being wired. They're going to take it outside, and you can see the fighter's going to go and put it on the road. You can see here he leans his shoulder in to go on the road, and the second fighter says, right here, says, put it in the tree. And he turns back and he looks and he's like, yeah, let's put it in the tree. So he's got it disguised, camouflaged, so that that it looks like just a shirt stuck in a tree. So it conceals the weapon for the advancing Israeli troops along the supply line. So this is another attack along the supply line. And then they set the cameraman back in a safe distance. And you can see one point, they're trying to aim for about a meter away from, to place the Shawat device a meter away from the armored vehicle so that the shape charge has a chance to form. And that shape charge is blasted and it pierces in through the metal, through the armor of the tank and goes inside of the tank. So let's look at number 4. We're seeing an elevated Yasin strike here. Again, elevated strikes are more advantageous because of the armor above. The tanks are built for being hit by other tanks, so their fronts are strongest. And the Israelis put their engine of their armored vehicles in the front to be more protective of their troops. Most tanks have the engine underneath in the back, and the Israelis have theirs in the front. So the armor is thicker in that area. So if you could be elevated and fired down on, as we look here, we see the trophy active protection system engage on this round. It's not clear that it intercepts it, but that ball of flame that you see outgoing there, that's the outgoing round of the trophy APS. But because they're firing through the window there and then around the corner, it's not clear to me that the round gets picked up in time to be neutralized by that system. But again, we're seeing number 5 is another one of these Yasin strikes. Again, this is with a Tandem 85. This is the device that I've told you that they've used. It's another Namr troop carrier. They took the outdated 85 millimeter rounds, and Qassam added a second charge to the front, a 64 millimeter charge to the front to make it a tandem charge, which allows it to work versus the armored vehicles that have lately, and since that weapon, that's a 1980s Soviet weapon, since that era, the armor has increased on these vehicles. And so Qassam's ingenuity, indigenous ingenuity is to put a second round to animate these. We normally see these being used against bulldozers, and there were this week. There was at least 6 attacks on D9 armored bulldozers this week. So that's interesting to note, because those are the ones who are shaping the land. So if we go to number 6 tomorrow, this is a really remarkable one. We're seeing here a captured M113. This is the outdated, mothballed armored personnel carrier. And this fighter saying that they're fighting us with remotely operated vehicles full of explosives. So this is essentially a car bomb that the Israelis have created. You can see there the plastic explosives inside those thick, heavy bags and filling up the entire infantry cabin compartment below. And they use them as car bombs to destroy houses. It's one of the methods that they use them to destroy houses. We've seen these been hit before, and I've described to you that they're unmanned. Elbit makes a kit for them to make these vehicles unmanned because they're not battle worthy at this point. You can see the control device there by his knee, and the wires. He's going up here and clipping these wires with a bit of a reckless abandon, but you always have to appreciate these fighters. They've been living through and surviving. These fighters have survived through most unbelievable things. So snipping the wires on this booby-trapped tank didn't seem to phase this Qassam fighter. And we're looking here at probably something like 4 or 5 tons of explosives, like 10,000 pounds of explosives, which can simply be taken by Qassam and returned to sender, as they do when they take the bombs. It's a different form. The plastic explosives is in a different form, but it can be used in barrel bombs. It could be used in shawad. It could be used in various other devices too. So the fighter says that they're fighting us with remotely operated vehicles full of explosives. We tell you, fight us face to face. Fight us with your soldiers, and we will drown you in the sands of Rafah. We will dismantle your vehicle of explosives, he says, as he's cutting the wire. And he says, the soldiers are afraid to come at us. If you send us your soldiers, we'll stomp them. And the whole time this video is being shot, there's the Zanana buzz, the buzz that you hear of the drones going over all the time. So he points that out too. He says your reconnaissance vehicles are above us, and your automatic vehicles are here below us. So that's interesting to know. We saw these for the first time. People who are regular listeners will remember I identified these vehicles back in February when we saw them for the first time in Khan Yunis. And when we saw one of them get hit, it exploded, an enormous explosion, which we didn't know that they were using these remotely. But that explosion was an indication to look into what was going on here. And and that was in February. So it still wasn't clear in February what was going on. But by May, it became known when they were used in Shujaiya and they were used in the Jabalia camp operation. And some of them were captured because you can capture them with the same system that the Palestinians use to down drones. They capture them by jamming the signal that goes between the controller and the vehicle. You can jam that signal and then spoof that signal and basically tell it where to go to. And that's what they do with these drones here that you're looking at. This is an Avata drone. This is a DJI off-the-shelf drone, but this is what the Israelis have used as their workhorse drone going house to house. So these are the drones that go house to house. We don't see them captured very often, I think because they're close to the soldiers. The soldiers release them from the doorstep and fly them up the stairs. So we don't see them captured as much as we see the other drones. But you can see, look, they just capture it. They got all the video on it. And that's an important story because we'll know that, as Nora reported at the beginning, the Al Jazeera bureau in Ramallah was shuttered this week, and it was shuttered the day after a video was released on Al Jazeera that was provided by captured drone video from Qassam. Qassam captured Israeli drones, took the video, gave the video to Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera broadcast. We've seen it before. It happened in Shujaiya, where they broadcast the human shield video. They've done it a number of times. There are a couple of videos along the waterfront where people were massacred carrying white flags. That's done by Qassam with captured IDF drone footage. And so that's
And thank you, John. You make Australian news look really, really crap. And that'll do. See you later. Bye.